The sky cackled as the manager paced to his car, eager to leave the place for the day. Rain gently pattered down from the sky onto his hat. He wore a distinguished black suit, with a deep navy Panama hat sat on top of his head. He had spent plenty of money in less than a day fixing a broken piece of track far up the mountain. No engines could run if the line was broken, and so the men he had sent up had to work quickly. It had been fixed, and he was ready for tomorrow. He then had to order a rescue crew to retrieve an engine that had fallen down the mountain. They had transported the engine back to the shed in a very rude lorry. He had arrived at his car and lunged for the door handle when there was a crackling of static from behind him and music started to play in the far distance. He turned back to the shed behind him. The engines were all asleep. The music was coming from the shed far in the back. He let go of the grip he had on his door handle and turned on his heel and paced to the far back shed. Turning the corner, he was met to the sight of a door narrowly opened. A small orange glow slowed through the crack of it as the music grew louder. He stormed forward, flew the door open, and stared at what lay on the tracks. Torn metal lay on a set of wheels that were disfigured. The once purple paint was torn away. A new blood-red undercoat shone from behind the scrap metal. The figment of a cab that used to be there was ripped off. The face on the back of what used to be an engine laid on the side of the junk. Metal was pushed through its mouth as a cold substance dribbled from multiple places. Its blank eyes stayed open, dead. The face on the front was much different. His eyes were closed as he rested, listening to the music. The manager walked to the source of the music, a record player. He stared at it for a short second before shoving it off grimly. It fell to the floor with a loud crash. It shattered to pieces.
Hey! I was listening to that,
came the engine. A groan escaped from its boiler while speaking.
Number 1,
said the manager coldly, repressing himself while speaking.
Godred.
No, it is not. You don't have the respect to be able to hold that name anymore,
came the manager. The engine stared at him. His face was crooked. The engine looked like he was barely holding on to life. His boiler was decaying, letting out groans as pieces of bolts came off him. He seemed to be holding on to life by a single thread. There was a clanging of metal as part of a nameplate slid off of his side tanks that were barely holding on to him. Dread, it now said. The manager scoffed at the sight of this. He regained his composure.
You are to be scrapped tomorrow.
He fiddled with something in his pocket while speaking, twirling it in a circle of motion.
You wouldn't. No, not your number 1.
The manager ignored the comment.
Catherine told me of your ploy.
She... what?
She told me that you were purposely being reckless at the section you derailed on at Devil's Back. She told me that you had purposely been doing it. She told me that you were trying to kill Culdee.
That's whore!
So you admit it?
Yes. Yes, I do. If I die, minus, well, I tried to kill Culdee. I wanted him dead. I was rooting the track up there because he was coming up next. I admit to it. What are you going to do about it?
You heartless bastard.
The manager took his hand out of his pocket in a swift motion, brandishing a sharp silver knife. Without thinking, he threw the knife head-on at the engine. It stopped in the engine's forehead. The engine, like its other face, looked without seeing. The manager let out a long sigh. Finally, he walked forward and dislodged the knife. He took a towel out of his pocket and cleaned off the skin of the engine from it. He tipped his hat down as he walked to the back of the engine. A broken one hung from the side of him. He grabbed at it and tore it off, aimed it at a window, and launched it through, and landed far in the dark abyss of the night. Rain was pouring down hard now as lightning filled the air. He went farther back into the shed and found a toolbox. He picked it up and went to the front of the engine. He took a wrench out of the box and hastily began to loosen the bolts around the engine's firebox. He successfully took the face off, then threw a tarp around it. He picked up a shovel in a far corner of the shed and made way to his car. He threw the shovel and the tarp in the trunk of his car, then paused. The record player was playing again. He looked back at the shed. The corpse of the engine's empty smoke box stared back at him as a loud last groan came out.